Could Mark Kincaid, Sidney Prescott's husband, be the focal point of Scream 7? Let's talk a little bit about that. Welcome to the KillJoy Jake YouTube channel, everybody. Pop your popcorn, grab a drink, and sit on down, because we're talking all about Scream 7 today. Now, of course, the film is still an absolute shambles after everything that happened last November. I have covered it extensively on this page, if you don't know what I'm talking about. With the stars of the previous film seemingly not returning for Scream 7, the focus will most likely redirect to Sidney Prescott and her family. But with the common criticism of the Scream franchise being, well, how many people want to kill Sidney Prescott? Could the focus of this film actually be her husband, Detective Mark Kincaid? Before we really get into today's theory video, I want to thank my Patreon supporter Lisa and her husband Josh for coming up with today's theory. Back in November, they sent me an idea for what a new Ghostface killer could be, motive, like who they are and all that, and I wrote an entire theory based off of it. I liked it that much. So to Lisa and Josh, thank you so much for the idea, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. So going all the way back to the year 2000 when Scream 3 was in theaters, let's talk about Detective Mark Kincaid's introduction. Detective Kincaid is introduced in Scream 3 as our brand new police presence. We're no longer in small town USA, Woodsboro, California. Oh no, we are in the palm tree laden streets of LA. I've never been there. I really don't know how to describe it. In Scream 3, Mark Kincaid comes off as a bit of a red herring considering how suspicious he is about the whereabouts of Sidney Prescott. He turned out to be a red herring though, because Roman Bridger was the killer in Scream 3. He was just suspicious about Sidney because, you know, it's kind of his job. Mark Kincaid was played by Patrick Dempsey, who is in another very popular slasher whodunit that came out last November called Thanksgiving. Interestingly enough, it comes from the same studio that's putting out Scream 7, Spyglass Media. So if you think it's unlikely that Patrick Dempsey will return for another entry in the Scream franchise, well, he's already working under that same company. It's absolutely a possibility in my opinion. Flashing forward 22 years into the future when Scream 5 came out, Sidney Prescott confirms during the film that she's married to Mark Kincaid and has kids with him. Let's roll that clip.
I'm just trying to get a run-in before I take the girls to school. How are you?
I'm good, really good. How are you? How's Mark?
I think I'll keep him.
Sidney confirms that she has daughters with the guy. She never explicitly says that they're married, but she does say, I think I'll keep him, which I don't think if they were separated, she would be saying something like that. We get another update on Sidney Prescott in Scream 6 via Gale Weathers. Let's roll that clip as well.
I talked to Sidney.
She's not coming here, is she?
No. She sends her love, but she's taking Mark and the kids someplace safe. She deserves to have her happy ending.
Now there's two really big things that Gale talks about here that really influence this theory. First and foremost, Gale talks a little bit here about how Sidney and her family have some safe place to retreat to in case of a Ghostface encounter. This makes me think that maybe Sidney's paranoia and anxiety have creeped back up. She might have been able to get past some of her own trauma and her recluse nature in Scream 3, but now being a mother and having a husband, there's a lot more things to worry about than just the self. Since the events of Scream 3, another family member of hers has gone Ghostface, and there's been 3 Ghostface attacks since then. I don't think it would exactly be revisionism to say that Sidney Prescott is once again paranoid, feeling the trauma weighing down on her again at this point in the storyline. Gale also brings up in this scene that Sidney deserves her happy ending. I totally agree with this, but if Scream 7 is to happen and to focus on Sidney Prescott, we can't start her off in a good place. You can't start off a horror movie with our characters at their happy ending. You first have to have some rising action, baby. People have gotta die. There's gotta be some drama. Shit's gotta hit the fan before you can have a happy ending. That's something I just want you all to think about while pitching this theory. After an opening kill that I'm sure will hopefully be vicious if they end up taking this route, Sidney Prescott is shown dropping her kids off at school, basically just doing motherly activities. Since we're focusing on Sidney a little bit, maybe it talks about the last like 10 to 15 years of her life since the events of Scream 4. Not only did she sell a book in this time, maybe she's been like a psychologist, like talking to people who have also gone through some horrible trauma. It's a nice evolution of her character from Scream 3, who was a crisis manager over the phone. She has since given that up to be a full-time mom now, while Mark Kincaid is at work. Mark is still a detective, maybe in a brand new city, maybe he's even the sheriff, so to say. He's somebody important at a small-town police precinct. We learned that Mark Kincaid wants a divorce from Sidney Prescott. He has the papers in his desk at work and doesn't know how to tell her. A big motivation for this, which we can learn through context clues, is that Sidney is instilling fear in her children and Mark doesn't want that. Think Laurie Strode in Halloween 2018 to Karen. She's just trying to prepare her daughters for the horrors of the world, but Mark is worried that she's taking it a step too far. It's maybe even to the point where the kids don't even want to try out for like after school activities. They just want to go to school, come home, they don't have any friends, they're terrified of the outside world. Mark feels that he has to do something about that. Now, I know some of you are hearing this right now and you're like, this doesn't sound like a happy ending, Jake. I don't like this at all. Like I was saying earlier, we don't know much about Sidney Prescott and what's been going on with her life in the last few years or so. During the events of Scream 6, they hid the family somewhere remote, somewhere secure, maybe let's say a cabin in the woods, just for the sake of argument here. That would instill fear and anxiety in kids, even though it's with good intention. Sidney just wants to keep her family safe. And think about that experience, right? Sidney Prescott hears that there's a new Ghostface in New York City, somewhere that they're not even close to. And then Sidney packs up the family, they go hide in this remote cabin out in the middle of nowhere to no avail. They never even got attacked once. Nothing happened. This could unfortunately be written as PTSD for the character, something that she'll have to overcome in this film. We're getting to the happy ending, just bear with me, okay? Mark doesn't end up having that conversation with Sidney yet because she's attacked by Ghostface. She thankfully evades Ghostface after a crazy chase scene at the grocery store. I think that would be fun, a public chase scene, why the hell not? Mark makes sure that Sidney and the rest of the family is okay, and then they have to have a very serious conversation as to how to handle this. Sidney urges Mark to go to that remote cabin in the woods somewhere just to hide out, stay away from this Ghostface, and protect their family, but Mark insists that they stay in town to face the threat head on. What's interesting about this argument is that both parties here are kind of right for totally different reasons. Mark here is potentially the best detective in the small town USA setting that we'll have for Scream 7, theoretically. He might be the only one to be able to catch this Ghostface. Sidney has a point though too, because we've never had a Scream film where Sidney had to protect small children. Or if you want to count the teenagers in Scream 4 played by people in their early 20s as children, that works too. Throughout the second act of this theoretical movie, there's more deaths and more clues as to who is going after Sidney and her family. Many of the deaths here center around a lot of the other policemen that work close to Mark Kincaid. This guy is maybe going after Kincaid more than he's going after Sidney. We then get a very dark moment in Scream 7 where Ghostface comes up to the front door. I want to set up some kind of attack sequence here where like one of the kids gets attacked by Ghostface, not killed, just attacked. Ghostface maybe sends a text through Sidney's phone to one of her daughters asking to be let in, and it's Ghostface, and like slashes her on the arm, something like that. She gets slashed on the arm by Ghostface, and before he can finish the job, Sidney Prescott of course runs in with a gun and starts firing. She starts blasting.
Wow. But it's a lucky thing I had my pieces.
Your pieces?
My guns.
Oh.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
Ghostface narrowly escapes, and Sidney Prescott's anxiety is through the roof at this point. Sidney and Mark, both terrified at this point, agree to go to their remote cabin in the middle of the woods. Ghostface follows them there for a very interesting third act. Now here's what makes this part of the story pretty interesting. That argument that we were talking about a minute ago between Sidney and Mark, both of their worries come true here. Because they stayed in town, one of their daughters got attacked by Ghostface, but because they left, Ghostface followed them and is going after them without, let's say, any police presence. Maybe they just left in the middle of the night once that happened. I feel like if they take some kind of route that's similar to this, the audience will be losing their minds at this point, seeing Ghostface follow them and being like, oh no, oh, what's gonna happen? Let's skip ahead a bit to the third act reveal. Who is Ghostface this time around? Our killer is a character that was put away a long time ago back in Hollywood by Detective Kincaid. Let's say this character's name is Harry. Harry killed his wife back in the day and was arrested for it by Detective Mark Kincaid. Dude got off on a technicality though, which took his sentence down to second degree, meaning he only gets like 12 years. Right? I don't want to look that up because I don't want the FBI coming after me, but I'm pretty sure it's only like 12 years if it's second degree murder versus first degree, right? Because that's 25 to life. I don't want the FBI showing up in my house, guys. Now, this guy finds out where Mark Kincaid is and learns a little bit about Sidney Prescott, which is why he dons the Ghostface robe. Part of his motive could be something that's a little more mature than what we've seen in the past. He could even have some sadistic line like, I'm not a high school teenager wearing a costume. I'm a real serial killer who's going to finish this once and for all. Right there, you have some subtle commentary on how this franchise is going on a little long in some people's opinions. Me personally, I think the Scream franchise is one that can last forever if they write it correctly. But there are definitely a lot of people out there who think that 6 Scream films is maybe 3 too many. I think that that would be a nice nudge. This character might have also been one of Sidney's former patients when she was a psychologist. This would totally work because Mark would be the one to recognize the character, not Sidney Prescott. I think it would be really cool too if you treated this third act almost as like a home invasion. The entire family has to have a hand in killing this guy, stopping the ghost faces once and for all. Could you see like a little 6-year-old Prescott Kincaid baby with a switchblade just stabbing this guy in the ankle? Maybe that's a little too far, but I think it would be very triumphant. The entire Prescott Kincaid family takes down this MFer in a vicious manner. It is a triumphant victory for the family the next morning when they return home and maybe sell the cabin. Okay, that's a little corny. That's cheesy. Let's not go that far. Mark and Sydney have reconciled throughout the events of this movie too, realizing that they've both made mistakes, and they're gonna help each other not make those mistakes in the future so that their little girls can have a happy ending as well. So no more divorce papers. Hell yeah. It's a happy ending. We have a Ghostface with a brand new motive that we haven't seen before. It's still family oriented, but at least it's different. And we even had some commentary on the franchise itself. Me personally, I would be very happy with a Scream 7 that looked like this. Once again, thank you so much to Lisa and Josh for pitching that idea for a Ghostface killer. I loved that. What do you guys think about this Scream 7 theory though? Do you want the next film in the franchise to be about Sydney and Mark being parents traversing a brand new Ghostface encounter? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this brand new Scream 7 theory. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon by clicking that link in the description below. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.